Okay, here we have the Peugeot 508. This is the automatic gearbox. It's certainly a very stylish looking car, it has to be said. But Peugeots at the present do have a terrible reputation for having absolutely awful automatic gearboxes. And generally speaking, the problem that people are finding with the automatic gearbox is that the transition through the gears is usually very, very lumpy indeed. Every time you change gear, the car jolts, and it makes for a very uncomfortable and very irritating drive. Now this car's got the automatic switch off. Now in a city I can understand the benefits of that, but your regular driving, it's very, very annoying. And to be fair, unless I was driving around London during the rush hour, I can't think of any other time when I would really want to use it. Now it's a nice big spacious car, this. Very nice to drive, good driving position. Steering is very light. Already I'm starting to see problems with the transition of the gears. It's quite bizarre that Peugeot would produce cars that have this problem. It certainly is a problem. Now back to the steering. Steering's lovely. Really is easy to drive this. There's no tautness with the steering at all. It doesn't feel completely anaesthetized so that you don't actually feel the road. There is a bit of sensation there, if you like. Steering is very responsive. A lot of cars have a terrible lag when you move the wheel like this. Usually the steering wheels don't immediately follow. But with this car, it is pretty much immediate. There is a slight lag there. And I actually wonder why so many people have cars like that. I suppose it's probably down to the fact that if you were in such a car which had such accurate steering like that, you'd probably find you were overcorrecting all the time. Now if I accelerate now, that's not me exaggerating at all. That's what the car is making me do. Every time it changes gear, it drops, there's a lag, and then it comes back and engages again. Who on earth would want to drive a car like that? Driving a car should be a pleasurable experience. How on earth can that be possibly pleasurable? Nobody would want to experience driving a car where it shakes you around like that all the time. It's not just with this car, there's plenty of other Peugeots doing the same. It's a very, very, very bad building design, that. Now going towards the interior of the car, the instrument cluster's here. It's not really obstructed by the steering wheel, but it's getting pretty close to it. I wouldn't say they're the easiest dials to read. I would say there's too many actual digits alongside the numbers on those speedo dials. Basically, when you look at a speedo, you want to be able to determine the speed that you're going as quickly as possible, because at the end of the day you only take your eyes off the road. But when I look at the speedo, every single mile per hour is marked with a stroke. Now that at the end of the day makes for too much information to stare at and decipher, so I don't really like that personally. Some people might, but for me, no. The rev counter is slightly obstructed by the steering wheel. Now often people say, well look, that's the whole idea of adjusting the steering wheel. That's wrong, that's a flunk. That's not why you adjust the steering wheel. You adjust the steering wheel to get the correct driving position, not to be able to see the dials. What is the priority at the end? Being able to see the dials, or being able to get the right driving position and have the vehicle under control? Now the centre console is quite attractive design, aesthetically pleasing. It's laid out, I would say elementary, but it's not something you would be able to operate whilst driving and not taking your eyes off the road for the first time. You'd have to familiarise yourself with something. The heating controls is all very congested buttons, and I can see that getting a little bit frustrating and probably pressing the wrong things or pressing twice when you shouldn't be. So the layout there is a little bit confusing, and I really think that hasn't been thought out particularly well. But the interior of the car does feel a little bit cheap and gnarly. It's not quite as bad as it is in some other cars, especially the Japanese counterparts. But you get different grades of plastic, and I can tell you now that plastic looks better than it feels. It feels like a big biro plastic. The rear view vision is really quite limited. It is slightly obstructed by the headrests, but not to a big degree. If you had 3 people in the back, you wouldn't be seeing much out of the back. The rear view vision is quite limited, to be fair. Now the side mirrors, the wing mirrors, I think you can see enough of what's going on. You know, it's obviously very important to see where you've been, but I would like to see them forward a bit more, because to look at them I've actually got to physically turn my head, whereas anything else is just a quick glance with your eyes, which is really a lot better, isn't it? Because then you're not taking your eyes off the road, you've got the peripheral vision of what's going on ahead. Now obviously Peugeot front wheel drive, slipping already around a roundabout, so driving in the wet you're going to get a lot of understeer, and that's not even driving enthusiastically. This gearbox, again, accelerate now, look at that, awful, major design flaw that. Let's try it in the sport mode, see if it makes any difference there. Right, we should now be in sport mode. Let's see if we get a quicker, more responsive transition through the gears. Not at all. That gearbox, I have to say, without any exaggeration, is the worst I've come across ever, period. Now the best part of this car, the best feature of this car is the steering. The steering is very good, the steering is very pleasant. The brakes, on the other hand, I'm afraid they're not very good at all. They're very grabby. The most perfect braking system is a braking system that allows you to apply the brake pressure at a gradient, a gradual pressure on the brakes. That way you've got so much more control over the vehicle stopping. If it's a case of just like either on or off, then it's like putting your foot up against a brick wall. Your control is limited. You can't handle a car at speed in an emergency when the brakes are either on or off. If I do a brake test now, I'm doing 50 miles an hour. I'm not going to do an emergency stop, I'm just going to brake firmly. 3, 2, 1. Well, even though it felt quite balanced, there's no ability to apply the gradual pressure. As I say, it's on or off. And that's the thing that the French just can't seem to get right. BMW do, Mercedes do, Audi do, but the braking system is letting this car down.